I haven't made a video in a week, and that's because I've been sort of reflecting on my own attitude. And I recognize my own failings in terms of me as a consumer. That means, I'm pretty much caught up in this entire cycle that I don't want to spend more for certain things, especially food, when the prices keep rising. And I don't live in luxury, I live in a one-bedroom apartment, and I'm 53 years old, so I don't even own my own home, So I'm hardly I'm hardly making $250,000 a year, as you can imagine, and most people aren't. And when you have these enticing slogans out there now, in terms of please buy organic food and so on, I want to caution everybody on here equally that what you consider to be organic food or whatever may not be organic food at all, unless you buy it straight from that farmer that you know, or go into a little farmer's market in your local community. This whole thing came to mind because of a little episode in my own grocery store in which I foolishly believed that some chicken labeled organic was actually well, I guess it's organic as far as that industry is concerned, but it became farcical once I found out how that entire operation operated in terms of organics and the labels that are being used to entice you into this. So basically, a chicken which is labeled organic or non-caged chickens, that's the way they call it these days, is absolutely no measure of of anything. In fact, these no cage chickens are being raised in huge cages, essentially, in huge farms. They never see the light of day, and so on. And once you've seen one of those operations, as I did last week, you become quickly aware of what organic actually means and what it doesn't mean. For some companies, that means they don't inject their chickens with antibiotics and so on. But unless those chickens are free range, in other words, they can sort of walk out and go out in the sunshine and walk around in the grass and have some freedom, not being perched up in some building with 180,000 chickens, not individually caged, but basically just in a huge cage. You'll understand the difference, if you know what I mean. And of course, it's much more expensive to buy food if you want to recognize that you're going to have to pay more for it, because this industrialized chicken shit, as I call it, is operating on a massive scale with which no single small-time farmer can even try to compete. So if you have to pay $15 for a 3-pound chicken, you shouldn't be too surprised. And you know what? Most people I know can't afford that. They can't afford that chicken. They can't afford to buy non-GMO foods. Because our entire society and our wage structures, it's all geared towards the lowest common denominator. And unless we change our own minds and consume less, we're contributing to our own malaise, so to speak. I want to point out, another related story here. This was a documentary which was broadcast on PBS, and they've also kind of fallen under the corporate coup at this point. But it was a fairly impartial documentary regarding cheap flights on airlines. I would urge you to see this documentary because it will give you a pretty good glimpse into what we as consumers are asking for and what we're essentially being served with in return. It's a complicated picture in terms of regional airlines because not all of them are the same. But I completely agree with the sentiment of this documentary, which essentially gave a voice to working people, and it showed the non-glamorous side of the airline industry, particularly within the regional airlines, which is 50% of transportation of your flying experience, so to speak. I would strongly urge you to watch this, because if you think that the FAA or the FDA or the industry itself is looking out for your ultimate safety, you're ultimately deluding yourself. Personally, I would like to have well-trained professionals and pilots flying me around rather than somebody on $16,000 a year with very little training. And to top it off with experienced pilots in the industry who have lost all the incentive for working for their own companies because they're getting screwed on a daily basis. This is basically what the deregulation of the airlines has led to. It's all about money, and it's all about short-term profits. And it's only a matter of time, just like the deregulation of the financial industry, until all of this blows up into our own faces. I'll post a link to that video. Watch it, please.